Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including four-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfala.
And Ray Alfala is a four-time champion of the NASCAR Pekin Freeze iRacing Series.
Three-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a three-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare two laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're watching from. Thank you so much for joining us here on Apex Racing TV for another round of the Colorado Karting Tour Winter Series here from the virtual Watkins Glen International, located in beautiful upstate New York. We've got a great show for you tonight. If you followed the series, you'll be familiar with some of the names and the concept of what we're doing here. But for those who may be new, like my co-presenter Tim, we are melding the real world with the virtual world here, with drivers from the Colorado Karting Tour and the greater Colorado racing scene, putting their talents to the test in the virtual world here on iRacing for the second season here on Apex Racing TV. As I mentioned, I am Tyler Newitt, joined in the booth tonight by Tim Cox, and working the cameras as always this season is the great Jonathan Grabowski, and of course doing much more behind the scenes than just the cameras. But we head now to qualifying for round 3 here at Watkins Glen, and it's a familiar name up top as we see him pull off and abandon this lap. It's Lawrence Zavadil, who has put in the quickest time. Similarly, championship leader Mark McCormick sits in second. with Ezra Kelderman, the first of the McLarens, there in third. Reigning champion Rob Hubrex sits down in 8th at the moment, so we'll have to see if he can put in a quicker time. Why don't we take a look at the championship standings as they sit right now? Still very early on in the season, but you can see Mark McCormick sits atop the season-long standings on 218 points. Lawrence Zabadil is second on 211. Then it's reigning champion Rob Hubrex on 177 as qualifying has finished behind us, and we will get the grid up for you in just a moment. So starting on pole here at Watkins Glen is going to be Lawrence Zabadil in the Porsche. Mark McCormick will line up second. So the championship top 2 doing the same in qualifying for the race round 3 here at Watkins Glen. Then it's Ezra Kelderman, first of the McLarens. Bruce Lukens, Floyd Kerr, and Kenny Schmid behind him. Sorry about the graphics here, but we'll continue working through the grid. Behind Kenny is Michael Keltner in 7th, Rob Hubrex 8th, Daniel Fellows 9th, Brian Bruzzi in 10th, then it's Trace Walker-Scott in 11th, and Suraj Pradhan in 12th. Behind them, John Combs sits 13th ahead of Armand Gevorkian. Then it is Aaron Botnick and Zach Peterson in 15th and 16th. Mike James 17th, Michael Herring in 18th. Rob Holubar 19th ahead of Danny Lopez, a couple of Colorado Karting Tour guys there. Jeremy Davis, also a Colorado Karting Tour member, in 21st. Mark Sherman 22nd. Ben Jolly in 23rd, and Mark Malsum in 24th. That is your starting grid here, and we will see shortly the field roll off behind the pace car, but I'll take this time to welcome my new co-commentator Tim to the booth. Tim, what are you looking forward to out of these GT4s tonight?
Well, everyone, myself, do love a tin-top car. Of course, the GT4, the slightly less powerful and slightly heavier version of less race-ready compared to the GT3s that's loved and adored by so many. However, Porsche's definitely going to be one to watch out for. Of course, we've got Jeremy Davis. He's in the lone BMW in the field. And the McLarens, well, it's Kelderman. He's starting the highest of all of them in that 3rd place. You can see him on the right-hand side of the track there, lined up on the 3rd place on the 2nd row with Lukens right behind him. Now, of course, Watkins Glen, what can we say about it? It's an absolutely classic road course here in America, and personally, it's one of my favourites. We're racing it with the bus stop chicane today, which definitely can provide a bit of action and overtakes into there. And of course, it's all going to really start with drivers looking to set up moves down into the 90, which is turn 1, up through the S's, slipstreaming before they come hard onto the brakes, into the bus stop, which they'll be coming to very, very shortly, Tyler.
Absolutely, yeah, you can see the field all tucked in behind the pace car there. Neglected to mention, of course, for those unfamiliar with the series, the race format. This is one of the standard heat feature rounds, so we'll have a 15-minute heat race, followed by a 30-minute feature race. Of course, there are also several endurance rounds scattered throughout, but this follows the traditional format. Have done a GT4 race on the recently revamped Watkins Glen on iRacing, and I have to say, I normally drive the Porsche in the GT4 class, but I actually switched to the McLaren personally. I found that the Porsche was almost undrivable through the bus stop. You couldn't carry the amount of curb that I really wanted to in the Porsche, so it'll be interesting. Obviously, Zabadil and McCormick have driven the Porsche throughout this series so far. We'll see how it works out for them if they're able to tame the bus stop effectively and keep those Porsches under them. The problem I found with the McLaren was it was absolutely brutal on cold tires. So we'll have to watch Ezra Kelderman, really the only McLaren towards the front of the field, front 5 or so, actually even further back to get to reigning champ Rob Hubrex.
Interesting you saying, obviously, about how the cars are to drive there. Of course, iRacing recently announced the revised BOP, balance of performance, has been put in ahead of the Raw before the 24. Now, the BMW M4, that's received a 1% reduction in power. The McLaren, that's 570S, that's remained as is. There's no changes there. He's saying interesting about the Porsche. He found it was, really heavy and a bit of a boat. Well, that's received an additional 10 kilos of ballast to its weight. So I'm sure that's not going to aid it any further, really.
Well, of course, that is only for the Roar before the 24. They don't actually change the series BOP. They figure that will balance it out over the course of the season, but for special events, they like to tune the BOP so all cars are competitive. But yeah, it's actually not so much the Porsche's heavy, but actually it's almost too light. It really just bounces over the curbs and kind of doesn't settle on the tires. So that's really its main weak point. It does have a lot of advantages. It's great in the kind of longer flowing corners where the McLaren is strong kind of through the boot section on power and on the brakes. So look for Kelderman and Rob Hubrex to be potentially strong there. As you mentioned as well, Jeremy Davis, the only BMW in the field, so tough to really judge where that car stacks up. But we're finally around the penultimate corner, and we'll see the pace car pull off here and release the field into the hands of Laurent Zavadil, who is qualified on pole position once again. He's holding the field for just a moment. Now he steps onto the accelerator, and Mark McCormick quick to cover off Ezra Kelderman. We know turn 1 at Watkins Glen can very much be a trouble spot with various different braking points for drivers. So far through the top 10 or so, everybody nice and clean. It looks like most of the field has gotten through all right, which is good to see. Don't see anyone tumbling down the order, so everybody doing just fine through turn number 1, which is great to see. Now we see McCormick with a run up through the S's on Zavadil. Zavadil goes to the defensive as they head towards the bus stop. And we'll see if McCormick forces the issue around the outside. He does not, tucks in line. And Kelderman hanging on well in that McLaren in 3rd place, putting the pressure on McCormick for 2nd.
Yeah, the drivers are able to take a lot of corner entry onto the curb on the right side of the entrance to the bus stop. You see the drivers really doing that as they head in through there. Now, obviously, down through the chute, an absolutely brilliant corner. This whole section here, everyone just filing through. No one looking to take moves early on. See the 68 there of Floyd Kerr just moving out, just trying to do his best to distract Mead, who's just ahead of him. Look at Samiris, trying to force a mistake and try and find a way past him in these early stages. Yeah,
I don't know if Floyd was trying to unsettle Kenny Schmid there, or he was just warming up the tires of that Porsche, because it certainly looked like a very back and forth lead. Yes. And certainly cold tires is it's not a tremendous effect in these cars, but it does affect them for sure, and might just be wanting to get a little heat into his rubber there. But as we see, looks like Laurent Zavadil has opened up a bit of a gap over Mark McCormick now, up to about 3/4 of a second, and really Ezra Kelderman is the first driver. Oh, we've got big contact with the wall in the back there. I didn't quite catch who it was. I see, yeah, Peterson, I think, was the secondary impact. I think it might have been Botnick, who was the first car into the wall there in the green Porsche. I'm not.
There we go.
It was Armand Gavorkian, who, I don't think he's got control of that car.
I think that's a secondary incident there. You can see the 403 BMW Davis right in the background there.
Yeah, it was definitely Gavorkian in the green Porsche who I saw spinning in that final corner. But yeah, clearly it looks like a secondary impact with Jeremy Davis, who is also reset to the pit lane, which is a real shame. But back to this battle at the front. And Zavadil continuing to pace the field. McCormick continuing to fall into the clutches of Ezra Kelderman. And we head towards the toe of the boot. This is where that McLaren can really shine. It's quite good on the brakes, and it's quite good through those early gears as well. The Porsche can accelerate well through kind of the 4, 5, 6 top of the gear range, but the McLaren is really strong through gears 1, 2, and 3. So Kelderman will be using that to his advantage for sure, and he continues to pressure Mark McCormick, but also Lukens putting some pressure on Kelderman as we see an attempted pass here. That's Suraj Pradhan under pressure from Trace Walker-Scott. But Suraj hangs on for now following another McLaren of Fellows there. But everybody stays in line for now as they work their way out of the boot and into the second to last corner.
It's one of those couple of instances of relatively clean starts. It's always a little bit tricky and ultra competitive at Watkins Glen. As we just see in the background there, I think it's that Pradhan just making a, well, trying to look and make a move. No, sorry, it's not Pradhan, it's Combs, sorry, just in the background there, and that's Porsche. So everyone's taking a really wide line there through the 90 out onto that runoff section there. Because they're doing an off track in the new revised version of Watkins Glen, as Combs now right onto the back of Walker, trying to slipstream through, and can he make a lunge onto the brakes?
Oh, we've got a spinner up ahead. It's McCormick. McCormick's around into the bus stop. And Kelderman dropping down, so was a move attempted by Kelderman. Oh, that's a bad spot for McCormick, and good on him to reset quickly. We've got the replay here. So Kelderman looked to the outside, heading towards the bus stop. Oh, that was interesting. It looked like they just kind of locked wheels there. Perhaps one drifting to the right and the other drifting to the left. Tough to really say there, but definitely that suspension broke pretty instantly on McCormick, and it's affected Kelderman as well, who has dropped down to 14th. But yeah, you were mentioning outside of turn 1, there's an off track now. There's also, if you go far enough, a slowdown penalty. I didn't see any of the drivers having to hold up there, but it certainly is a risk if you happen to run a bit too wide through turn number 1 here at the revised Watkins Glen. But all of this has really benefited Rob Hubrechts, who has jumped up to 4th place now, as Floyd Kerr is now dropping down the order. What's happened to Floyd? Not sure. Ooh, he's continuing to drop. There he is, parked on the side of the track. That's not a good spot. And he now resets to the pit lane with some damage. So not sure what happened to Floyd there.
Let's take a look at onto the grass there.
Yeah, so spun up the rear tires. Easy to do. That exit of the boot is perhaps one of the hardest corners on the track because it's completely off camber. So it really, you have to be extremely careful on throttle, and it seems like it just caught Floyd Kerr out a little bit. But that's benefited a couple of Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Series regulars, Kenny Schmid and Rob Hubrechts. Both find themselves now 3rd and 4th. Schmid up 3 places from his start, Hubrechts up 4, and they keep plugging along, chasing that podium, which is now in the hands of Lawrence Zavadil and Bruce Lukens. Here we see a battle again with Suraj Pradhan and Trace Walker-Scott. Trace putting the pressure on the green McLaren of Pradhan, but Suraj hanging on for the moment. And again, this is kind of the part of the track where that McLaren really shines, and you can see Suraj using all of the track and opening a bit of a gap there on Trace.
It's absolutely cracking driving from Walker-Scott right now. I mean, let's not forget, this young man's only 13 years old, and to be here, fighting and putting in absolute, stellar lap times, currently in 8th. It just goes to show that, youth can pay off over experience at times.
Absolutely, and certainly not the only one of our drivers on the younger side, with a number of the junior karters at Colorado Karting Tour participating in this series. Trace doing a great job there, as you said, in 8th. Here we see a battle between Danny Lopez and Mike James over 15th place. Mike in that green and black Porsche. Probably not close enough to Danny to make a move here into turn 1, and indeed, he thought about it a little bit late, but not deep enough on the brakes to send it up the inside. Of course, Danny now putting pressure on Michael Herring in that black Porsche up ahead, and Herring goes very wide into the first of the S's, and that's going to hand the position over to Danny Lopez. Perhaps a slowdown there for Herring. I'm not sure otherwise why he would be so far out to the right. Ooh, careful. Very close side by side there between Herring and James, but everyone's got it sorted heading into the bus stop.
See James looking incredibly racy right now. This cluster of 3 Porsches, but just while he was looking to make a little progress, Lopez just able to pull away and just to get some fresh air over Herring.
And just like that, Tim, we are well past halfway in this race. 15 minutes for the heat race, and we are closing in on minute number 9 as we see a battle now between the recovering Ezra Kelderman and Aaron Botnick in that blue Porsche. Kelderman has done well. It doesn't look as though he has too much damage on that McLaren, so doing his best to work his way back up through the field. Obviously back a little farther than he should be given his qualifying position, but it's not easy to make a pass and get away in these cars, so Kelderman's got his work cut out for him. But of course, with the grid set for the feature race based on the finishing order for this race, every position counts. For Ezra, he's going to want to move as far forward as he can.
Like I say, definitely qualifying. Well, effectively, it's almost like the sprint race qualifying, like you see in some of the Formula 1 races that the format they've taken on this season. Definitely crucial of where you finish. And oh, it's running really deep there was Coombs, and look, that's cost him nearly about Brucey through.
I think there might have been a little contact as well between Combs and Trace Walker-Scott. It certainly looked like Trace took a much shallower line than you normally would into turn number 1, as though he'd gotten a little tap on the rear from Combs. But as you mentioned, it has opened the door for Brian Brucey, who's maybe not as far forward as we normally would have expected. Brian's been pretty quick the first couple rounds of this season, though I think his finishes have suffered due to some technical difficulties. But Brian just sitting in the back of the top 10 and 9th at the moment. Maybe not practiced as much in the McLaren around Watkins Glen, or just not a track that suits his driving style. But he's, of course, a top 10 is nothing to scoff at for sure, but Brian, we'd often expect him to see a little further up the field.
Definitely. Definitely one of the drivers you expect to see more towards the sharper end of the grid, and just to see how he progresses throughout the rest of the race as Walker Scott on the attack once more.
Yeah, he's really putting the pressure now on Suraj Pradhan, but Pradhan has remained vigilant and held off Trace for that now 7th position. This battle's been going on a while, and while it's been going on, they've been moving up the order through others' issues. I think originally they were battling for somewhere around 11th and 12th, but now 7th and 8th are Pradhan and Walker Scott. And Pradhan continues to have the upper hand for the time being. But we do know as well the Porsche's really kind on their tires. So it will be interesting to see if Pradhan is able to continue to hold off as potentially the tires on that McLaren begin to go away, especially, ooh, there's a move there from Walker Scott. Pradhan left plenty of room, which is good to see. And I think Trace is going to get the job done here as they head side by side up through the S's. That's not going to last particularly long, but Pradhan fighting back.
Here he comes. It looks like Walker Scott just getting the best run out of the corner. However, right behind, look, here comes Ruzi trying to get part of the action. And into the bus stop. I thought there was almost going to be 3 wide there, Tyler.
Well, that's very clever by Brian. I mean, at that point, you know that the 2 drivers in front of you are already tense. You don't want to be going into the bus stop too wide, so you fake a little move 3 wide just to try and unsettle them a little further and potentially draw an incident from one or both of them in front of you. Didn't play out that time for Brian, but shows, you know, he's one of those always thinking on the racetrack. You know, it's not all about how fast you can drive the car. It takes some racecraft as well. So a very fun little fake there from Brian Brucey.
Yes, you see Walker Scott is turned from being the aggressor to the one having to defend now, with Pradhan and McLaren right behind, and he's currently feeling maybe like he's going to get a little bit ganged up by the McLarens right behind, with Brucey as well, the third in this 4-car train. Combs currently at the back of it right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how Walker Scott handles this pressure. As I say, he's been applying the pressure to everyone else around him, and oh, into the wall. That was Pradhan into the wall there.
It was, and I've seen the white flag from the flagman, so this will be the final lap. Bruzzi going for the move into turn number 1 with the potentially wounded Pradhan ceding that place pretty easily. And Bruzzi moves himself into 8th. We'll have to see if Combs can capitalize on Pradhan's mistake and move forward. Here we see a couple of friends battling here. Kenny Schmid and Rob Hubrechts into the bus stop on the final lap. This is for the final podium position here, and Schmid sent it deep into the bus stop, and Rob backed it off, maybe hoping Kenny would run a little bit wide, but at the moment, it's still Schmid from Hubrechts for P3 as they head into the final few corners. Not too many places you can make a pass happen here towards the end of this lap, and here is the battle for the lead. This is Zavadil and Lukens heading into the toe of the boot, and Zavadil has the lead as he has all race, but Lukens really applying the pressure here. It bodes well for the feature race to see Lukens challenging Zavadil so strongly here. Zavadil was so dominant at Lime Rock. We were potentially a little worried that the field might not be able to keep up in these sprint races, but Lukens is certainly putting Zavadil onto the heat here as they head through the final 2 corners. Don't think he's going to have anything for this heat race, but from a front row start in the feature, we'll see what Bruce Lukens can do. As around the final corner, Lawrence Zavadil will clear the wall and come across to take the checkered flag for race number 1 of round 3 of the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series here from Watkins Glen. Schmid able to hold off Rob Hubrechts there for P3 in the final podium spot, as Pradhan almost came back on Brian Bruzzi there at the end. So clearly not too much damage to that McLaren as Pradhan secures 9th place. Further back in the pack, we see everybody else coming through to the finish. Whoa! As some people stopping just past the line there, including Danny Lopez. But we'll get those full results for you once everybody's come across. Just waiting on a few more drivers. But a strong, strong showing, as we've come to expect now from Lawrence Zavadil, who secures yet another race win.
Of course, Zavadil clearly has pedigree from an early age. All the way started karting at 5, and by the time he was 6, he'd already came 3rd in state in the 50cc class, and you see really racing definitely flows through his blood for the driver, and a win here for him in race 1.
Just as he did at Lime Rock, just waiting on Zach Peterson here to finish, and I think time has expired. No, he's still coming across the line now. We'll be able to bring those results to you. So your race 1 heat race winner, Lawrence Zavadil from Bruce Lukens and Kenny Schmid, your podium. Then it was Rob Hubrechts, Michael Keltner, Daniel Fellows, Trace Walker-Scott, Brian Bruzzi, Suraj Pradhan, and John Combs, who rounded out the top 10. And of course, we'll start in the top 10 for race number 2. Behind them, Ezra Kelderman, after his contact with McCormick, was able to recover to 11th. Rob Holubar finished in 12th ahead of Aaron Botnick and Danny Lopez. Michael Herring rounding out the top 15. Mike James brought it home in 16th ahead of a couple of Marks, Mark Malsum and Mark Sherman in 17th and 18th. Behind them was another Mark McCormick, who finished in 19th after his contact, battling for 2nd early on. Floyd Kerr, Zach Peterson, Armand Gavorkian, Jeremy Davis, Ben Jolly, all, of course, had trouble in that race and were not able to finish on the lead lap. But we've got a 5-minute warm-up here before the feature race. Here we see Armand Gavorkian, who, of course, was involved in that lap 1 final corner incident that involved a couple of other drivers, and I've seen Armand on the chat apologizing for that, which is good to see, but a shame, of course, for the drivers who got taken out. Not too many drivers heading out onto the track for the warm-up. I think most drivers treating it as a bit of a break here.
Definitely a chance to refuel the body and mind with a slight break in the proceedings, and around about 3 minutes left before we go racing once more in the feature race of the evening. And wow, what can we say about Watkins Glen? It's an absolute classic of a circuit, and hasn't changed, massive amounts over time. Of course, we've now got this remodeled version to iRacing, which, for me, Tyler, I don't know about yourself, I prefer it if anything. I mean, obviously, it was initially a little bit tricky with the very much the change in line to turn 1, where you're unable to run wide onto the paved section on the exit like you used to, and also it's been a little bit tricky because the curve, especially in some of the cars, lower cars to the ground, like the new Mercedes F1 car and the prototypes of LMP1 and 2, much lower to the ground. The curve, it's got a bit of a camber to it, and if you get onto it, you can end up bottoming the car out and sliding across it and losing quite a bit of time, and also making the car unstable. Then also towards the end of the track, 3 corners end, where we saw incidents during the race, and there's that nasty bump on the inside. However, the car has the track has definitely been smoothed out a bit, and it's a little bit more easier through the exit of the corner. And personally, I will feel like you can get the power down just that little bit earlier, which is crucial in the run into the last 2 corners here at Watkins.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly an interesting reprofiling. I remember when they first repaved it, watching the LMP2s or Daytona prototypes, or I don't remember what they were at that point. But they could absolutely send it through there, and with the fresh pavement, they were super quick. We're gonna throw to a brief ad for the series before we head to the feature race, but we hope you'll join us on the other side of the break for a 30-minute feature race here at the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series on Apex Racing TV. Welcome back to round 3 of the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series here from Watkins Glen. We are bringing it to you, of course, on Apex Racing TV. And the field is just gridding up now for the feature. This will look very familiar if you were paying attention to the results from the heat race. But Lawrence Zavadil will lead the field to green from pole ahead of Bruce Lukens, who had a great charge to second there in the heat race. Kenny Schmid rolls off third alongside Rob Hubrex, Michael Keltner in 5th, and Daniel Fellows 6th. Then it's Trace Walker-Scott alongside Brian Bruzzi with Suraj Pradhan and John Combs rounding out the top 10. Behind them, Ezra Kelderman and Rob Holubar take row 6. With, there it is, Aaron Botnick rolling off 13th alongside Danny Lopez. Then it's Michael Herring and Mike James, 15th and 16th. Then it is the Mark Trio, Mark Malsum, Mark Sherman, and Mark McCormick, 17th, 18th, and 19th. Definitely want to keep our eye on Mark McCormick, see what he can do from the back of the field here. Obviously, mighty quick. Floyd Kerr rolls off 20th, another driver perhaps a bit out of position there. Zach Peterson, Armand Gavorkian, 21st, 22nd, with Jeremy Davis and Ben Jolly rounding out the field. Just looking now, John Combs, who would have started P10, did not grid. And I'm not sure if I don't see him having left the session. So evidently that's whether intentional or otherwise, he has made the decision not to join the field on the grid. So that'll be interesting to see. That'll, of course, promote that outside line from 10th on back up a couple of positions each. But we can see our pole sitter, Lawrence Zavadil, warming up those tires. We've mentioned how important it is, you know, in pretty much any race car that you're going to drive to get the tires warmed, even the virtual ones. But these GT4s in particular, as you kind of mentioned at the off, Tim, they're really more street car based. So it does take a little bit to get that heat in the tires. See Kenny Schmid doing the same, doing the accelerate and brake. That's, I think, been proven to be the best way to heat your tires up in iRacing, a little bit more effective than the weaving. But you see a lot of drivers doing a little bit of both. It kind of heats the tires up evenly.
It has, yeah, as you say, the accelerate and brake heavy technique is definitely the best way to get heat into the tyres on the iRacing platform. There is a big urban myth within iRacing that weaving does nothing to it. However, like I say, it is a big urban myth which is spread widely throughout the community, oddly. However, it apparently does actually genuinely make a difference. However, especially, it's not so much of an issue during closed leagues like this one. However, in officials, you do need to be a little bit wary of employing that technique, and even the accelerate and brake format, where it does tend to cause the concertina effect, where you see cars that, like you get on the freeway, where sort of has to slam on the brakes, which then cause everyone behind them to slam on, and they're sort of not quite concentrating. Everyone smashing into one another, bumper to bumper. But luckily, not seeing any of that here. Plenty of clean drivers, and they all know what they're doing, with so many of them being real-life racers as well.
Absolutely, and yeah, I think the truth of the matter that kind of spawned that urban myth is that the weaving back and forth kind of warms the carcass temperature, but not the actual internal temperature of the tires, which can actually sometimes negatively affect grip. So I think it was more the not totally correct, but not totally incorrect. It's not the best thing you can do to warm up your tires, but it does actually warm them up. And I think when done in combination with the accelerating and brake, it can effectively warm up the tires a little bit. So clearly, these drivers know what to do. Lawrence now holding the field back from the pace car just a little bit to get that gap and be able to start the field where he wants to. Though the pace car is going awfully slow, so it's a bit tough to maintain that gap. But Lawrence still doing that. You can see Kenny Schmid is ready to go from the second row. We know Kenny's been in the series for a couple, well, as long as we've been broadcasting it here on Apex Racing TV. He is plenty rapid and definitely wants, I think, to be up there battling with Lawrence Zavadil. So putting the pressure on here. We'll see if he tries anything into turn one, but the pace car will pull off to the right. Lawrence holding the field again. Now he's gone. Good jump from both Kenny and Bruce Lukens there. Not so much you can do to match the leader, but they did a good job. And Rob Hubrex looks like he'll settle into fourth, maybe have to fend off the charging Daniel Fellows there for fifth. But once again, looks like everyone through turn one pretty cleanly, which is good to see. A little bit of three wide in the back, but everyone gets it sorted. Mark McCormick already picked up a spot or two into 17th. But up in the front, it's Bruce Lukens putting the pressure on Lawrence Zavadil as they head to the bus stop. We saw this in race number 1 as well. Zavadil defensive. Now, does Lukens do what McCormick did and settle in, or does he try to send it up the inside? He does send it, but everybody gets sorted now, and Zavadil will maintain the race lead.
Zavadil will be...
Oh, sorry, Tim. Something's happened to Brian Bruzzi. He is dropping well down the order. He's on the inside of the carousel on the grass, which is a great call by Brian to get out of the way of everybody. I didn't see all that much damage on that McLaren, so not sure what happened there. But Brian Bruzzi now down at the back of the field. Here we will get a replay. Was it just... So he goes to defend against Trace Walker. Oh, it was a little bit of a nudge from Walker Scott there. And that just sent him on a bad angle over the bus stop curbs. Oh, and just a little clip of the wall. These cars with the new damage model are pretty robust, so I don't think that'll slow Brian down too much, hopefully. But obviously, he'd rather not be down in 21st to start a 30-minute race.
See the number 5 there of Keltner making progress. That Lightning McQueen inspired livery. Oh, there's contest in the background.
That's Kevorkian again, who had trouble in race 1. Now he's made contact with, I think that's Herring. And it was the McLaren of Malsum who got held up, but I don't think had too much damage. But tough to see what started that, but Kevorkian just got sideways in that really narrow part of the track, and several other drivers, unfortunately, with just absolutely nowhere to go. And Kevorkian's now reset to the pit, so a tough race weekend for Armand. He is now crashing both of the races. As we see Suraj Pradhan working his way up through the field. Here's what happened to Armand. So coming out of the boot, he's trying to make a move stick there on Aaron Botnick. So it was Botnick who lost it originally, and Kevorkian, unfortunately, there, the innocent bystander. Yeah, there's not much you can do because, you know, the rule of thumb is to hold the brakes, but when you're already rolling, it doesn't necessarily end well for anybody if you do get on the brakes. So really tough for everyone involved there. Michael Herring, Armand Kevorkian, as now Botnick is dropping down the order once again. So has he had more issues here?
I did hear the sound of a crash in the distance, so it could well be that he was the driver caught up in that one, as James trying to make progress here with McCormack just in front of him, who I expect to see McCormack a bit higher up in the standings, obviously currently down in 13th, but running up 6 places. So the biggest riser so far is Floyd Kerr in the Porsche, who's a lead 11th and up 9 places so far in race 2.
Yeah, both Kerr and McCormick working from the back of the field have made swift progress as Kerr gets another on Danny Lopez there up into the top 10. Really great pace from Floyd here to work his way, as you mentioned, up 10 spots. A little bit of a ways off of the race leader, but he's got quite a good chunk of the field ahead of him, can still make some more spots. If he doesn't hit the wall, which he might have just done there, that was awfully close for Floyd Kerr. But as McCormick now looking 3 wide into turn number 1, and everybody, it looks like, is going to make it through all right. So well held there by Danny Lopez. And I believe that was Michael Keltner in the other Porsche there. Everybody kept it in order, and Mark McCormick moves up a couple more places.
See, it's all starting to make progress for Kurt and McCormack. Clearly, it's trying to work together a little bit as it's lapping up more near the sharp end in the field as the two McLarens battling out right now.
Yeah, that is Hubrex and Fellows. Fellows up 1 from where he started. Hubrex started there in 4th. But interesting that Rob's dropped off the back of the top 3 Porsches. We're used to seeing him running well up towards the front, but seems like hasn't quite had the pace here this weekend at Watkins Glen, as Schmid, Lukens, and Zavadil all separated by not that much, but Hubrex a bit of a ways further back. Here we see Suraj Pradhan under pressure from Danny Lopez. He's just lost a spot to Michael Keltner and potentially McCormick as well. So not sure if there was an issue there for Pradhan. I think he was a bit further up the order, but he's now dropped back to 12th.
So it's happening in front of them as well, because McCormack's managed to fade his way past Kerr right now. Those two switching positions. McCormack up into 9th, Kerr currently up into 10. Both of them up 2 places. Now Kerr, he only started racing karts in the late summer of 2020, so relative new to it, however, clearly putting all of his sim racing experiences into practice, as he's been sim racing for an incredibly long time.
Yeah, here we see Kerr looking towards the outside of McCormack in turn number 1. That's not the way you're going to make a pass, but McCormack held up a bit behind Rob Holubar here as they head up through the S's. And Holubar doing a good job defending here, but he's got 2 guys who are out of position on the grid and charging hard through the field who want to get through here. We'll see what they can do as they'll be side by side into the bus stop. McCormack's got the job done, and Kerr wisely waits. Oh, big wiggle. And Kerr did well to hang on to that. That's what I was talking about from the start. That is really where that Porsche could cause trouble, is over the curbs in that in the bus stop.
You see Kerr just holding on to that position from Kautner. He was really opportunistic there, and could smell almost a move through and tried to strike while Kautner was vulnerable, but quite able to get out the move done, and somehow Kerr just holding on to that by the skin of his teeth, as we would say here in the UK.
We say that over here too, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
That's a pretty universal expression. As we see Zavadil still defending from Lukens here. But Bruce has done a really excellent job through both of these races to keep the pressure on Lawrence Zavadil, who is kind of in a world of his own at Lime Rock and Laguna Seca for the non-championship round. Lukens seems to either agree with Watkins Glen, or maybe he's put in the practice, but he's definitely keeping tabs with Lawrence Zavadil here as they dive down into turn 1. At the bottom of the hill, they'll start to work their way back up again through the S's. Just what a... if you've never been to Watkins Glen in real life, it's unbelievably beautiful, just an area, not to mention the track itself, and it's such a great racetrack. I mean, you know, I love a racetrack with some good elevation, and Watkins Glen certainly has that, and then you've just got some beautiful natural beauty surrounding the track itself. It's really great, but you can see the cars here working their way through the carousel now. They'll head back downhill into the boot before once again working their way back uphill.
Oh, hold on. There's someone off the track there. It was one of the McLarens. I think
that'll be Rob Hubrex, who is also reset. So did Hubrex and Schmid come together, or was that 2 isolated incidents?
I think Trace Walker Scott might have been involved with carrying a bit of front end damage.
So Hubrex was under pressure from Fellows. Schmid was all by himself. Bit bumpy over the curbs. Oh, and straight into the tires and right into the path of Hubrex and Fellows.
Wow.
Oh, that is a shame. And now Walker Scott has nowhere to go. Hits Hubrex. Ezra Kelderman, lucky. I think he got through that all right, but that was just one of those incidents where nobody did anything wrong there. Just a mistake from Kenny Schmid, and unfortunately, nowhere to go for several drivers who are now down the order.
Definitely.
And now something's happened to Floyd Kerr as well. He's just dropped to the back. Was he wasn't involved in that, John, was he? All right, we've got a replay of what happened to Floyd Kerr here. Oh, yeah, that is the toe of the boot. Easy braking zone to miss. Perhaps that's what happened there. Here we go. Oh, so he was side by side with Walker Scott, who'd been involved in that earlier incident. Scott defending to the inside, and deep on the brakes. Walker Scott and into Floyd Kerr. That's a shame for Floyd, who was already on a recovery drive after trouble in race number 1. He'll have to fight back again after that one.
Interesting. Walker Scott was already carrying damage, and the car was looking really squirrely and unsettled after that earlier contact with the incident at the carousel, and clearly still carrying some front-end suspension damage and not being the best under braking.
Yeah,
And,
in those situations, though, you'd hope that the driver is aware of that and, you know, is not driving over the limit with a damaged car, because you can have some incidents like that. So definitely a shame for Floyd Kerr, and we've got both Walker and Fellows having made a trip through pit lane now. A lot of drivers who are running towards the front of this field now find themselves in the back. So let's take a look at where things stand right now. It's still Lawrence Zavadil from Bruce Lukens. And then the Kenny Schmid incident took out a number of drivers from third on back. So it's Ezra Kelderman up 8 spots from the start of the race, who sits in third. And then it's Mark McCormick, who is now up 15 spots from where he started, who sits in fourth. There is the two of them. They're not going to have anything for Zavadil and Lukens without trouble. So really the fight here is for the final step of the podium. Behind them is this battle, where Rob Holubar is defending against Michael Keltner. Holubar up 7 spots from his starting position. Keltner down 1. Then it's Suraj Pradhan, who's had a bit of an up and down race number 2, but now back up to P7. Behind him, as Holubar lets Keltner through, Mike James and Danny Lopez hold 8th and 9th, and Mark Malsum hangs on to the last spot in the top 10 with his McLaren.
It's definitely heading sort of this, well, coming up towards the second third of the race. It definitely seems to be coming alive a bit more here at Watkins Glen. It's definitely turning into the battle of the Glen with so many Teslas up and down the field, and James, he's going to sit behind initially, but he just needs to be careful of where he makes a move on Lopez, because Malsum is catching right up to these guys. It's now right on, you see, right on the back of them as well.
Yeah, Malsum in that McLaren, as Gevorkian lets him through there. That would be Armand, who's a lap down in 23rd. You're right, Malsum is closing in on that battle between James and Lopez. Lopez, another guy who's had a bit of an up and down day. But, oh, and what's this? This is Lukens and Zavadil, and I'm showing Lukens in the race lead. Did Zavadil take a ride over the bumps? He sure did, through the grass. So he recognized what was going on there, where Kenny Schmid did not, and did a very good job to just let the car catch itself through the grass. But it has handed the lead to Bruce Lukens. So a change for the lead for the first time today. And Lukens leads this race by over a second now, 1.5 seconds almost, on Lawrence Zavadil. So Zavadil's got to get on his horse here and close that back up if he wants a chance for another weekend sweep at Watkins Glen.
Interestingly, due to that mistake from Zavadil, meant that Lukens was 1.8 seconds quicker last time around. Well, that's why he's able to pull out that gap. You know, 1.3 seconds so quickly and early. As I tell you, this battle in the midfield here, Tyler, it's I've been keeping one eye on the timing sheets, and it's really starting to hot up between them. 6 temps is all that covers 8th to 10th right now.
And you've got poor Armand Gevorkian there, who clearly has the pace to run with this group. After his issue is just having to sit back and watch. But a lot of curb there from Malsum in the McLaren, as we see Lopez a bit wide into the carousel. The carousel's especially running the boot layout. It's one of those corners where you can take a number of lines and any one of them could work out for you. And clearly not much difference between the lines that Lopez and James took through there. But they hang on for now. But this is where we'd expect Malsum in the McLaren to shine through the boot. This is its type of corner, and especially with Lopez and James fighting in front of them, it's a good chance for Malsum here to potentially grab a couple of positions in one fell swoop.
Definitely, and Malsum, I tell you, it's tricky for him. He's still got plenty of time, just coming up to half race distance. Able to, you know, still got time to comfortably sit behind these guys and let them battle it out. I mean, If this was a physical battle in the real world, I mean, surely you're meant to be on Lopez, who's a 4-stripe belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and also just a lot of kickboxing as well. However, in the world of sim racing, it's a little bit different to a proper street fight, although this is, I think if they can stay like this, it's going to turn into a street fight. As you see, oh, Master's at the inside, can he do both of them?
Oh, what a move, but it looks like great driving there by James to cross Malsum back over. He saw the McLaren late on the brakes into turn number 1. They're still side by side.
Contact!
Oh, Ooh, I think that second contact with Gevorkian might have done more actually than the contact with James did, but that was that's the danger of going too wide through the S's. You need both drivers to be aware, and it's hard to tell, but it looks like Malsum might be carrying a little bit of damage there as he tries to regroup and close back in on those two ahead of him.
Gevorkian, like you were saying earlier, Tyler, you know, really sort of the innocent bystander in all this has clearly got the pace to not only run with these guys, be ahead of them where it looks at the moment, but just having to sit behind them. But this is going to play into Malsum's hand. He's going to have someone slipstream, someone to work with, and I'm sure Gevorkian is going to be definitely compliant as there you go, moving across to the side of the track to let him through.
Yeah, Armand clearly knows it's not his fight out there, unfortunately for him. I'm sure he'd rather be racing and battling with those guys than having to let them through, but that's the right thing to do when you're kind of out of position and out of the battles here. But race leaders now heading into turn number 1. Not this past lap, but the lap before. Zavadil set the fastest lap of the race, and he closed almost half a second that time through on Lucan. So clearly Zavadil's got some pace, and with the advantage of the toe is closing right back in on Bruce Lukens. This is the battle for the final step of the podium between Ezra Kelderman and Mark McCormick. McCormick trying to get a run into the S's, but it's, as we saw with Malsum, not easy to do by any stretch of the imagination. And McCormick wisely sits behind Kelderman here. He'll try and pop out, potentially heading into the bus stop. Kelderman not defending here. I think he knows McCormick's not going to try something, or is he? McCormick to the inside and gets it done. So Kelderman has to cede the position, maybe wishing he defended there, but he drops back into 4th. We'll see if he can hang with McCormick as they try and chase down the leaders, though with just 12 minutes remaining, I don't think that's going to happen.
Great move, and very opportunistic move there from McCormack, and I tell you what, he wrote his letter, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, walked down to the post box, and he sent it.
Something's happened to Danny Lopez. He is slow through the carousel. I don't see damage on that car, but clearly had a rough run through the bus stop. We'll see what happens here. And yeah, that is the brutality of those curbs. And just actually clipped the grass a little bit on the exit, went for a spin, did well to keep it out of the walls, and recovers, having lost, I think, 3 places down into 11th. Yes, he's dropped out of the top 10, but right in behind Combs. This is the battle for 6th between Pradhan and Holubar. Oh, and
contact.
I think they've come together. So Holubar, no. So it looked as though Holubar sent it as Gevorkian has spun again. Holubar sent it in the exit of the boot, which is really not a corner you can go too wide through. And Pradhan didn't realize he was making the move there as they came together. Here's the replay of it from above. And you can see, you know, Holubar made his intentions clear, but that's just really not a corner that you can get through too wide. And unfortunately for Pradhan, he goes around and instead of backing up, which was probably what he would have wanted to do, tried to get out of the way going forward and collected James there and Armand Gevorkian as well. So now Pradhan pitting in for damage repairs. Surely Mike James will be in the pit lane as well. He took a pretty big hit there. And he is dropping down the order still.
Yeah, I think he's checked out as James, and understandably with that damage he's going to incurred. But Zavadil, not only is he fast, he's also consistent with it as well, but it's also bringing out the best in Lukens as these two are really pushing each other along. You see the differences in lap times between the two drivers there, and I think what Zavadil is definitely the man on the move right now. Hunts down Lukens, and with 10 minutes remaining here at the Glen, it's got every chance of finding his way past him. And the late great Murray Walker, the British commentator, once said, yeah, catching person is one thing, but getting past them is something different altogether.
Absolutely, and really, Watkins Glen is not an easy track to pass on, despite the passing we've seen as Lukens trying to break the toe there into turn number 1. I bet we'll see Zavadil pop out. Nope, he's decided to wait here. He's got 10 minutes to get the job done, so perhaps thinking a bit longer term here is Lawrence Zavadil, but turn 1 and into the bus stop are really the only places you can make a pass happen. I suppose the toe of the boot is as well, but it's such an interesting corner. It's tough to actually make something stick there. As, Lukens defends, and Zavadil sells the dummy there, but can't get up alongside as they head into the bus stop. Lukens just gaps Zavadil a little bit there. We know Zavadil's got the pace to close that back up, but both of these drivers driving really well here. Lukens wants to hang on for this win, and Zavadil wants to complete another race weekend sweep here at Watkins Glen.
Zavadil definitely turning up the pressure to the max right now on Lukens, and can he find a way past? He's got to do all that work again once more to close right up onto the back of Lukens. It just starts to come up onto a bit of traffic as well ahead of them. I'm sure that's going to play a part in this story and how these two end up finishing up.
Yes, it will, as we ride on board with Bruce Lukens. I believe that will... Not sure who that is up ahead. It looks a little bit like Trace Walker-Scott. Yeah, who's well down the order in P21. And it is Floyd Kerr. So those two are battling for position, which Lukens will definitely have to keep in mind after their incident earlier on. They come back on track now, fighting for P20. As we see a couple of other drivers who were battling for a much higher position earlier on. Rob Hubrechts and Kenny Schmid both have pit for repairs. Now Hubrechts sits ahead of Schmid, trying to hold him off for P16 here. And with all that's gone on around them, they've actually managed to be in a decent position here. Not that Hubrechts would want to finish P16, given he came into this trying to defend a championship, but certainly could have been a lot worse if there hadn't been other incidents to help promote them.
Definitely, it's even more action.
That's Brian Bruzzi going wide in the carousel.
He's been getting very up close and personal with Jolly. As Jolly runs a bit too deep there.
So they trade corners running a little deep, and Brian Bruzzi sweeps through into 18th place to move himself forward a little bit. But obviously after his earlier incident, just trying to recover some places here.
Definitely, and Coombs trying to find, well, Dad's going to find a way around the outside, and Lex just to back out of it there. Lopez is going to be a little bit slow on that entry. Not by much though. You're able to take the almost straight line, that chicane where you can take pretty much the whole curb on the inside on the entry to the bus stop, and with Coombs, you see. Towards 2/10 of a second, looks like around Watkins Glen, is all that separates these two out on track right now.
Yeah, Combs putting the pressure on through the toe, hanging it out a little bit. That's the danger of that corner, because the camber falls away from you as you crest the hill. And Combs a little too eager on throttle, just slid up the rears a little bit and takes that shallower line into the heel of the boot there, but not going to help him get the move done on Lopez just yet. But Lopez runs a bit wide at the exit of the boot and perhaps open the door a little bit. But here's the battle for the race lead. Yeah, and he's got a huge run up out of the S's. Lukens has to go defensive early, which is going to compromise his exit and his run towards the bus stop. Zavadil squeezes him just a little bit and tries to go around the outside in the bus stop. Can he hold it? Lukens has done well to keep the inside. He's got the line for the carousel, but Zavidil will have the line for the entrance to the boot. They keep it off each other, which is great to see. And Lukens deep on the brakes here. You can do that. There's a little bit of camber to the corner, but he's going to lose out here for sure to Zavidil. And I think with the line he took there, he's not going to have a chance to get back through the toe. And Lawrence Zavidil will grab the race lead with just over 4 minutes remaining. I'd imagine it'll be likely 2 more laps at the line. So not a ton of time left for Lukens to try and get Zavidil back here.
I'll tell you what, I would love to have been Trace Walker-Scott right then. He had front row tickets to some absolutely epic wheel-to-wheel racing. The ultimate respect between these two. They're battling out for the victory here in race 2. I mean, it's a struggle. Normally, you know, you get someone yields, well, you've got someone alongside who's slightly ahead into the bus stop. These two said, no, hold my beer, gents. And then everyone watching at home, watch this, and remain side by side all the way through. She said right the way down to the chute. Incredible stuff from these two as they battle it out for the win.
Absolutely, and Zavidil's a bit wide in turn 1, so is Bruce Lukens. And it just seems like Bruce doesn't quite have the pace that Zavidil does. He's gonna need a mistake from Lawrence, which is, of course, how he got the lead in the first place, so it's not at all out of the question. He'll get a tow up to the bus stop, but he's just not quite close enough to do anything other than make a big lunge here. He shows the nose, and Zavidil wisely gives him space there. They head out of the bus stop with Zavidil still ahead, but Lukens has not given up yet, as he's got a lap and a half to try and make something happen here for the race win. As they head down into the boot, they've got lap traffic up ahead of them. I believe that is... that is one of the already... I think that's Michael Herring in one of the already lapped down Porsches there, as he goes yet another lap down, but didn't hold either of them up too much, which is good, as Lukens still close enough to put some pressure on Zavidil to be picture perfect through this last lap, but maybe not close enough to make a move stick without a mighty lunge. As they head out of the boot here, they'll be coming to grab the white flag in just a couple more corners, and Zavidil is looking awfully strong.
He is, Zavidil definitely in a commanding position at the moment, and doing his best to extend this gap up. He knows that Lukens is going to have the slipstream through this next section of the track, across the start-finish line, straight through the heel, through the 90 evens, and then all the way up the hill through the S's and down to the bus stop. But I get a feeling Lukens is maybe going to be just a little bit too far back. Gap just over 7/10 between these two, and Zavidil in a commanding position.
Lukens is quite a bit further away this time. It's really going to take a mistake through the bus stop, I think, for him to have any chance at grabbing that lead back from Lawrence Zavidil, because we've seen how strong Zavidil is through the boot section. As Lawrence heads through the bus stop, catches a bit of air, but that's the normal line, and he looks quite sharp through that section, heads into the carousel. Lukens is closer, but he spins it. Oh dear, pushing just a little too hard is Bruce Lukens. He's got a decent gap to McCormick, so he might be all right here for second, as he rejoins a little erratically. There goes McCormick. McCormick grabs second. He might even lose the podium here, as Kelderman is through as well. So a valiant effort from Bruce Lukens, but it's cost him dearly, as he might not even finish on the podium here. He's right on the back of Ezra Kelderman, so he might not be out of it yet, but there's not too many corners left to make a pass happen. He is right there on the bumper of that McLaren, as Zavidil comes around the heel of the boot, and he suddenly has a comfortable lead. But this is the battle for second now, with 3 cars covered by nothing at all. McCormick's got it. Ezra Kelderman has third, as Zavidil rounds the second to last corner, and through the final corner he will come around to take the race win. But the battle, of course, is for second on the track. It looks as though Kelderman might just hold on to third. McCormick has got second sealed up. Kelderman runs just a little wide, but in the drag race, that McLaren is strong on the power, and Kelderman grabs the final podium spot. So really tough break for Bruce Lukens, who was giving it absolutely everything, just carried a bit too much speed into the carousel and finds himself just off of the podium. Here's a battle on track, though. Lopez and Combs battling over 8th place. Lopez has it into the final corner. It looks as though he'll be able to hold it here. Takes it nice and safe and secures 8th place. Combs will come across the line in 9th.
Cracking race between those two. They've been duking out for pretty much most of the race, really. And yeah, some absolutely great action. Seeing Pradhan going to be one of the drivers who's going to be disappointed by race 2, but even so, all things considered, I think to come home in 12th place is one we'll definitely take, considering what happened out on track during race 2.
Yeah, I'm sure he won't be too happy about it, but as you said, 12th place is good finish indeed. As the last of the cars are coming across the line, we will get to the results and then just a few interviews for you to close out our race weekend. Brian Bruzzi will be the last car across the line here in his McLaren. Just rounding the final corner now. And across the line is Brian in 17th place. Definitely not the weekend he would have hoped for, but finishes nonetheless. And here are your race results. So Lawrence Zavadil grabs that win in both races ahead of Mark McCormick, who qualified second and had a very roundabout way to get back there for the feature. Ezra Kelderman brings it home in third, rounding out the podium. Then it's Bruce Lukens, Michael Keltner, Rob Holubar, Mark Malsum, Danny Lopez, John Combs, and Zach Peterson, your top 10. Behind them, Mark Sherman, Suraj Pradhan, Aaron Botnick, Jeremy Davis, Kenny Schmid, and Rob Hubrechts out of position in 15th and 16th. Brian Bruzzi as well in 17th. Then it's Trace Walker-Scott in 18th, Floyd Kerr 19th, Ben Jolly in 20th, Armand Gavorki in 21st, Daniel Fellows 22nd, Michael Herring 23rd, and Mike James rounding out your field. So as we mentioned, we've got a couple drivers waiting to talk to us. And the first, of course, is the man who made the weekend sweep happen yet again, Lawrence Zavadil. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, guys. How's it going to you? Long time no see.
Yeah, a bit of a break between rounds there, obviously with the holidays in there, but another, doesn't seem like you have left off very far from where you, or picked up very far from where you left off, as it were, with yet another sterling performance.
Yeah, I had great fun this race. Bruce unfortunately spun that last lap. I'm so sorry for him. I saw him in my rear view mirror. I was like, no! But going too wide through the bus stop there for the lead, that made my night. So.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like you had a bit more of a fight on your hands this weekend than perhaps you did at Watkins Glen, but we saw Bruce able to put quite a bit of pressure on you in both race number 1 and race number 2. How much of that was you managing pace, and how much of that was Bruce being quick?
Bruce is definitely fast. I mentioned it the last race that he was definitely quick. I knew this race was going to be really intense with the draft. I expected him. In practice, me and him had been going back and forth on who was, faster. So I expected him to be right up there with me the entire race and it to be a really hard-fought battle. So.
And certainly it was. You had to work through a bit of traffic there. How aware of you were? How aware of the chaos behind you were you through that race, or were you singularly focused on that race win battle?
I was pretty much just focused on the car ahead of me most of the race, Bruce, and then just trying to figure out a way around him. I knew once I got into the started passing laps traffic, I had to make a move pretty quick because otherwise passing in lap traffic is just going to be really difficult. So I made the move happen and got the dub.
Very good. And of course, next we head to Daytona International Speedway. How you feeling? You feeling confident for that one?
Been practicing for the 24-hour for the last couple of months, so I got plenty of experience at Daytona. I think this is going to be a really good race as well. Daytona's, again, super draft heavy, so we'll see.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you there, Lawrence, and continuing on your romp through the sprint and feature race format. But until then, thanks so much for joining us. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Shout out to the family that I know is watching, and shout out to RM Solo again. So, but thank you guys so much for putting on this event, and I really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Well, thank you, and congratulations once again on your double win, Lawrence Avadil. We've got one more interview for you tonight, and it's our feature race runner-up, and Tim Cox will be with you with Mark McCormick.
Oh, welcome along, Mark. Wow, what can we say? You were the perennial hot knife through butter in race 2, up 17 places.
Yeah, easy peasy.
Just another day, the average day of being Mark McCormack, undoubtedly. Obviously, you qualified second, wasn't it? And obviously, race 1 didn't quite go to plan for yourself.
No, me and Ezra had some netcode. Sometimes when the cars, they get like pulled together somehow, so that was pretty unfortunate. So starting from 19th, I really didn't expect to get that far up, but obviously I also had a little bit of help from Bruce. Unfortunately for Bruce.
And obviously, just heading back to race 2, obviously you're entering through the carousel, and you see Lukens, who was recovering from a spin. How relieved were you to get into that second place during race 2?
Right before that, I noticed, Bruce was in the lead, I think, for a little while, and I noticed that Lawrence got ahead of him at the end, and I was like, damn it, Bruce. Why couldn't you stay ahead? And then he spun, and I was like, thank you, Bruce. You're the man.
No worries. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to before we let you go, Mark?
CKT for putting this on and getting sponsors, and you guys for putting in the work, and my wife for letting me do this instead of putting the kids to bed.
Thank goodness for a strong second better half even alongside you. There's Mark McCormack, who finished second in race 2 for Porsche.
Thanks, guys.
And that will just about do it for us here on the Colorado Karting Tour iRacing Winter Series. As we mentioned, next round will be coming to you from the Daytona International Speedway in 3 weeks' time on January 30th. But until then, we do have some more coming to you here on Apex Racing TV. Coming up tomorrow, we've got the Rikmatech Classic Sports Car Series Round 1 at Laguna Seca. Followed on Wednesday by the Ray Esports Racing League Round 8 at VIR, or Tuesday night, rather, for those of you in the U.S. time zones who might want to check that out. So the next couple nights, some great action coming your way here on Apex Racing TV and plenty more. You can find us, subscribe to us on YouTube if you want to catch all of those races and many more. You can also find us on your favorite social media as Apex Racing TV. And you'll never miss a race. But until that time comes, we wish you good night. For myself, for Tim Cox, and Jonathan Grabowski here in production, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.